Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great entrepreneur on. Then I came across him when I was attending an event called Pitch Breakfast, and he was pitching his business. And when he pitched his business, I was like, you know what? I got to connect with this guy because I like the way he simplified it, his story, and the very real challenge that he's taking on with his business Swipeby. So I wanted to welcome to the show, Carl Turner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it also helps, that we share the same last name. We're not related, but we do share the same last name. So that makes it even more of a special guest. So, Carl, before we jump into your business, Swipeby, tell us a little bit about, what was your background before starting Swipeby?
Sure. As you might can tell now that I actually talk is I'm originally from Germany. So I'm born and grew up in Berlin. Lived there for most of my life and came now at this point almost 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago, to the United States to study at Wake Forest University. So that what brings me to North Carolina, right? I'm really close to you right now. I'm in Winston-Salem. And yeah, studied there. I studied there finance, computer science, was for a long time on a track for consulting actually, and really enjoyed that. Had some cool internship gigs across the world in Dubai and Kuala Lumpur. But I always thought like, what's the holy grail for a lot of people? And it's to start their own business, right? Why is everyone I'm working with in consulting talking about starting their own business? Why do I not fast track and do that? And then actually, so in my last semester, I started Swipeby, but yeah, I'm still pretty young, and that's my, the brief story of where I come from and what I've done.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what was that like? I mean, when you're on the, the track of going into consulting and which, like I said, a lot of people do that track. But then with, coming across, the entrepreneurship opportunity, was there much of a, I guess you say, a trade-off or a thought, or was it tough to come to that conclusion for you?
No, not at all. I need to say, I've come from an entrepreneurship family. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. I started some smaller businesses myself when I was younger. And so what happened is, I went to business school, was really interested, and then I think, I realized I have the luxury while being in college, I can't fail. Worst case
Yeah.
scenario, I wake up in the same dorm, I eat at the same food court, right? I go to the same classes. There's like I mean, it's a pure luxury, right? But if you start something in college, failure is, I mean, there is maybe in your mind that something didn't work out, but it's virtually impossible. But what for me was more the challenge is, how do you do it? What's it like to start a business? How do you actually get started? And what I did is after I had the internships in my last summer, right before going into my senior year, I actually interned and shadowed with founders from, guy a little younger than me, raised a couple million, to a seasoned tech entrepreneur, to a beauty entrepreneur. And I was just fortunate enough, to have like these 2 weeks, 3 weeks experiences, seeing primarily that all of those were just very hardworking people and strongly believed in what they were doing. And that really was the only thing that united them and kind of was for me the common denominator, what it's need to start a business. But that's how I got into it. I would say it was not scary. It was the opposite. It was more like, if I don't do this, this is scary because I'm in college, nothing can happen.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, where'd you pick up that wisdom? I mean, because I think that's a brilliant idea is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then go work with some or shadow some to see what it's really like. Where'd you get that wisdom to run with that idea?
It's a good question. It's probably too smart that I came up with it by myself. I don't know. I think it was a combination. Actually, I think it was my parents, like it was my mom and it was my dad. Again, I always talked entrepreneurship, always wanted to do something, and kind of right. If you want to do something, you study it. If you want to, learn something, you just start doing it. So I think it was just a conversation with my parents who was like, well, why don't you try to actually work with people, who do what you want to do. So I guess I need to give credits to my mom and my dad on that one.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So what was that, like, that kind of that idea process? Because I think when you think about entrepreneurship, I mean, there's so many different directions that people come up with. So how did you come with or settle in on focusing on that idea that fuels swipe by?
Yeah, it was it was a long progression and story, right? So after this shadowing, the one thing I didn't have was the idea. I kind of figured out, all right, it does not take rocket science, frankly said, to start a company, right? It just takes a lot of persistence. You get hit in the face every day, but you just need to get up. And it, hyper optimism and so on. But it obviously, none of those people I shadowed was said, look, this is the idea you should start. But so what Swiper is today was what basically was happened. I studied like after these shadowings, which I ordered in Germany, I studied abroad in Shanghai, and it was the first time I experienced delivery how I liked it to be. I was here in the US, I was in Germany, I wanted to order a burger delivered, and even 7 years ago, 10 years ago, you could do that. But it was, instead of $8, it was $10. Then you needed at the fries to hit the minimum. Then you had the delivery fees. Then you got a tip, and then it takes like 2 hours. And in Shanghai, in China, which for a lot of reasons why you can't replicate here in the US, it was street food, which was super cheap. It was cents for delivery, and 15 to 20 minutes later, it showed up at my apartment. I was just like, that's amazing. Like, I love that. And that kind of just started me thinking as well, how can I bring something like this to the US? If I love this experience so much, how can I bring that to US, Europe, right? To a world where there's different labor requirements, where it's different pay and so on, right? And that then moved into an idea for peer-to-peer delivery network on university campuses. That then moved into an idea for Tinder for food, actually, because higher education is not that fast. That then I launched actually in January 2018. By summer 2018, that idea didn't have the traction I needed to have, but now I was in the market, right? So now I spent 2 years almost being in the food market, being in the restaurant market, looking at retail. And what I then identified was, well, I have this ordering app that I built trying to solve one problem, but I saw, a big solution popping up in click and collect, Walmart, Target, investing billions. And that was where it's like, well, I can either shut this down, what I have, because it's not going where I want to, or that looks like an amazing opportunity helping restaurants, helping merchants, helping retailers, especially in suburban America, with the power of location and turning anything into a drive-through. And that's then where Swiper actually come from. But this is like a 3-year, almost 4-year progression of learning, understanding the market, launching something, pivoting. So it was not just overnight, I woke up and had the idea. It was a process.
No, and I think that that's amazing because I do get the sense that sometimes a lot of people hear about, entrepreneurs like, oh, they just woke up, had this idea, and couple months later, they raise millions of dollars in capital. I don't think people get a chance to really understand, like, even coming up with the idea, it's like it's an evolution process. So, going through that process, like say where you started an idea, you couldn't get the traction, was there some, I guess the concerns or how did you manage, being able to, like I said, to pick your optimism back up and go into the next idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're right. Right. One funny observation here is, right, as you said, the story is always painted. Entrepreneurs or companies get big overnight, but then everyone says entrepreneurs are hustlers and persistent. Look, one of the two is not true in that argument, right? If you get rich overnight, you don't need to be a hustler and persistent. And if you don't get rich overnight, well, so I think if you would actually, it's two conflicting things that people say about entrepreneurs, and that means one is not true, and I think the one that is not true is the success overnight. But well, I think it was a combination out of things. Number one is, I think, that's just, I'm lucky that might be ignorant or naive, but at least I'm, positive enough. So I think maybe as an entrepreneur, you need to have a level of ignorance, seeing sometimes all the red flags and just continuing with the head through the wall until you get through at the other end. You could also call that persistent or hustle. I think so. That was one of the things where I think I'm fortunate enough to have that trait maybe. Otherwise, I think it is a big one was a support network, right? And that means having people to talk to. Again, I brought up my parents before; they're big mentors to me. I have a ton of friends who are supportive. Again, it's a really fortunate, right? There's other founders, entrepreneurs who don't have people who support them, and that does not mean with money or anything, but just means with words, means with courage, and so on. So I think I was really fortunate to have that, and even I need to say, you know, giving credit here to where in Winston-Salem and even North Carolina in parts, people have want that you succeed. And what that does is, right, that everyone gives you another resources, gives you a pep talk. And I think that's actually so one of the reasons why I came to America originally was I kind of like, I really like here's an attitude of you can do this, we can do this. As you know, nothing is impossible in America. And I think that mindset helps you keep going. So if you surround yourself by people, I think that's what it boils down, right? The people you surround yourself, if you're, you know, fortunate enough and that is family, that is supportive, if that is friends, if there's other founders, you know, they give you like the power to continue. And then I think the last component to that is having a plan, right? I think I was never really in a situation where I was like, I have no idea what I was doing. I guess maybe I was just not seeing it, but I always had, you know, it was like, all right, this is not working, but look, there's this opportunity. So I think because you can also put it in the other direction, which is really dangerous, is you don't want to, you know, follow a dead horse in a way, right? If something, sometimes it's really important to also make a cut and just stop something and start something new. So I think it's finding the balance out of always having a plan. You know, if there is a pathway out of this that is realistic, continue with it. If it's not, might stop with it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, speaking of, like I said, with Swipe By, can you help people understand, what's the experience that they can expect with Swipe By, and, how can Swipe By be a value and an asset for them?
Sure. I mean, so primarily we're right. What we are targeting. So the user, like you and me, being consumers, are actually. I mean, they are the ones who get the nice experience, but we're actually selling to restaurants. So and to merchants. What we really, that's so two-sided, right? What the merchant can expect is we're providing a technology that automates a lot of their takeout needs. That basically provides one of the low-cost market solutions out there to power curbside pickup, to power curbside pickup, virtual drive-through, and so on. But if we translate this in a consumer experience, what it is you can order on Swipeby, and that means you can order on the Swipeby apps, that's on Android and iOS, or on the restaurant's website, or through the restaurant's Facebook, or through the restaurant Google. You might don't even know that you ordered on Swipeby. And what then happens is when you place the order, we send it to the restaurant, you don't pay anything extra. And then the magic happens is really when you pull up. When you pull up is we geofence your location. So you might have done curbside at Best Buy. You actually need to enter a number or need to press a button. You don't need to do this. The only thing that you do is you pull up, and generally a minute or less, a waiter will come out, hand you your food, put it in your window, put it in your trunk, you paid already, and you're on your way again. So it really is, think your favorite Italian, your favorite, soul food, Southern food, sushi place, and it just became faster than McDonald's drive-through because geolocation technology.
Wow, that's amazing. So where can people find, Swipe By online? Where can they follow your story on social media? And did you mention that they can get the app? Yeah, where they can get the app?
Yeah, well, I think the easiest way is to get the app, which is Swipe By in one word. Swipe By, right? Or Swipeby, how some people pronounce it. But as long as you remember it, I don't care what you call it, as long as you remember it. But so that's the primarily one. Our website is swipe.by. So swipe.by, there's no .com. That's a good way. And then on social media, but generally is you just type into Google Swipe By, and if you want to be hyper safe and type into Google Swipe By Curbside, everything relevant will pop up to find the app, to find information how to sign up as a restaurant, to follow us on social media, follow my story and our team story. So Google is our best friend, right?
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up the interview, one of the questions that I like to ask every guest that comes on is when you think about, your story, you think about where you've been and, where Swipe By is going, what's two lessons and, two things that you've learned that you would share with other business owners?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Right, and there's so many. So the question is, what is the most important one? Well, I think that the first one is more to people who think about starting something, right? Which I think there's a lot out there. And that would be just do it in a way, but talk to a lot of people. I think, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are scared sharing their ideas because they think that people copy them. And I would always ask the question, well, how often have you copied from someone? How many ideas have you heard? And I think we all answered the question was we have 0 times done it because we have other things to do. But what the effect is if when you talking to people, when you share it with everyone, number one, you will be surprised what network comes, right? People know someone, people can help, and people generally want to help. So there's a ton of resources that gets unlocked by simply sharing and building a network. And I think then the other one, which is also really important, because as much self-motivated as all of us are, a little external motivation always helps. If you talk to a lot of people, well, they will talk back. They will be, hey, how's that podcast going you always wanted to start? Oh, it's live. Cool. Send me the first episode. I will share it to some friends, right? So it creates a little bit accountability because people are following up with you and people are, asking how things are going. And that helped me, I think, again, was getting started as well. A lot of people knew what I was doing. So whenever I was down, right, back to that question as well, they followed up with me and lifted me back up. So that was super helpful. It would be just like, my lone soldier. I think so that will be number one. I think another one is, it's a little bit cliche, but I think it's have fun. And it's almost goes a little bit, I think for me, it's a lot around people, right? Have a great team, have fun with your team, be a good human, right? And the end is if you treat other people how you want to have them treated, it's impossible to create any of those things that we all want to create with our companies by ourselves, right? We need to have customers, we need to have partners, we need to have employees, we need to have mentors. And I think it's really important to always have fun, treat the other people that they have fun, right? Having a culture where no one has fun doesn't lead anywhere. So yeah, these are not really technical things, but I would think is, do it, talk to a ton of people, and then surround yourself with people and have fun yourself, but also make sure that other around you have fun. And I think then my last one, which is the most important one, honestly, so that's number 3, it's a bonus. If things are bad, just go to sleep. Never make a decision out of rage. I think it's just when I have a bad day or something, is don't write that email you're upset about. Don't write the text you're upset about. Go to sleep, write it in the morning. The world looks very different. So I think that's a really good one.
I think that's an amazing one. So Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insight. It's definitely been a pleasure to have you on. So thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for having me. This was fun.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.